Hi guys, happy Sunday with Satan. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I hope you guys did not get sick with a cold, with anything. It sucks. So, I wanted to kind of go in today to the true story of Bathsheba, Sherman. Because, yeah, I watched The Conjuring again last night. And the more I watch it, nothing adds up. It just doesn't add up. So literally every time Ed and Lorraine Warren would go and find an investigation and investigate it, everything was demonic because they were Roman Catholic, devout Roman Catholics. And you all know what that means. Everything's going to be demonic. There was also a really, really ridiculous, whoever came up with this, some paranormal researchers group, that homosexuals, gay people, are possessed by ghosts. Really? I don't think so. So, anyways, but yes, and then again, one more little thing. Don't ask me for a reading and then file a dispute with PayPal because you're not happy with your reading. That's not my fault. That's your fault. You're the one, yeah. So don't do that. So, no names, but yeah, don't do that. Bad. Very bad. But anyways, yes, the cards did say that someone would try to kind of basically steal your valuables today, your money, with very refined methods, and this woman surely did. So yeah, well, you can, you have your refund. I refunded you, so never ask me for a reading again, never come into my chat rooms again, ever. So alright, the real Bathsheba Sherman and the true history versus the conjured fiction. Now, Bathsheba was a beautiful woman. She was very vain, and she was considered to be one of the most beautiful people, or women, in her time. Alright, so, and this is from, wow, what is this? Dreaming Casually Poetry.blogspot.com. So, thank you guys for this. This is amazing stuff. Alright, so it goes on to say, in my work as a historian and as a history writer, reporter, good one here, alright, so he says, or she, I'm not sure, sorry, I have written for newspapers, magazines, personal blogs, and I have also published 2 books. Good. I have become what I would like to call a voice for those who no longer can defend themselves. I like this. So, since those dearly departed can no longer shed light on their real stories and tell us themselves, it is up to the historians, who are basically history detectives, to do the work and use some elbow grease to dig for the answers and tell the stories for those who are no longer here. Alright, so he or she goes on to say, I have become strongly attached to many of the stories of those people that I have investigated over the years. So in many cases, I set the facts straight in stories that have been gossiped about for so many years, that the tales have become a well-spun tapestry of fiction rather than fact. In other cases, he says, I have written about people who've never been written about before, finally, giving their stories a chance to be told, so they are not forgotten. I am a strong believer that no one should ever be forgotten, and that everyone deserves for their story to be told. So, I like this already. I like this person. I like their thorough investigation into Bathsheba. So, no, she was not evil. She was not a witch. She didn't hang herself. And she didn't kill her kid. So, that was totally fictionalized by The Conjuring, Hollywood, and the Warrens. Lorraine Warren is the reason Bathsheba has a very terrible name. And she wasn't even a practicing witch whatsoever. People were jealous of what she had and how beautiful she was. And that is true. Alright. Now. Okay, so, in an earlier blog that this person posted nearly 2 years ago, he mentions a movie, Preston Castle, aka The Haunting at Preston Castle. So that was filmed at the historic Preston Castle in Lone, California. So being that I actually researched the history of the Preston School of Industry, which Preston Castle was constructed for, and he says I published a book on its true history and some of the forgotten events that took place there. I love that. I love that. Bringing it all to light. So, where'd I go? Where'd I go, you guys? I forget where I went. Shit. Okay, wait, where'd I go? Okay, yeah. I was very upset to hear that the movie promoted itself as based on true events, when in fact there was nothing real about the film or their so-called historical facts. In fact, the information they provided in the movie only made it worse for people to separate fact from fiction in regards to the history of the school due to many errors and history revisionism in the film. I like that, revisionism. Alright, these keep going out. There we go. Alright, so what upset him, he says, me even more, is the fact that they used Preston's name in their film and made up a false history. They used the name of the head housekeeper, Anna Corbin, who was murdered there, and added additional enormous information. Oh, Erinus information to the movie in regards to Anna. There was no ward at Preston named Bobby Wells, and he did not kill Anna Corbin, just as the Ghost Adventure episode that made allegations that Anna's spirit was there and would haunt the castle, and even allegedly possessed the lead investigator on the show. This movie also disrespected Anna's memory and personal character. Wow. Alright, so he's going at it, he or she is going at all these paranormal shows. I like that. Thank you. Thank you for doing so. Alright, so where to go? Yeah, it just seems that there is no end to the lengths in which Hollywood, or people in general, will go to make a buck these days. So many times they take the real story of a real person and discredit their memory, completely disrespecting the person, knowing all too well that the person or persons they are attacking cannot speak up about it. Well, I'm pretty sure they could. Pretty sure they could. As upset as I was about Hollywood ruining Anna's memory, I have become just as upset, if not more, about the character of Bathsheba Sherman in the movie The Conjuring. Alright, so now what did the movie claim? We all know what the movie claimed. That Bathsheba was a witch, that she had a kid, and the Conjuring claimed that, she sacrificed the kid to Satan, and she did not. So that was all fabricated. It was all fabricated. Lorraine Warren did speak about Bathsheba being a very evil, demonic entity, when she's not. She even describes Bathsheba as an incarnate spirit, or no, something that has never walked or had, human form, when Bathsheba is an actual person. So there's, there can't be. So, alright, the movie The Conjuring is said to be based on a true story, which was documented in the case files of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Although Andrea Perrin, I love you, Andrea, love you. Alright, the daughter of the family the movie is depicting has written 3 books on her experience in the home as well. So I love this. I cannot wait for her film to come out. The truth about this movie, The Conjuring, the real Conjuring. Alright, now, in the movie, Bathsheba Sherman was said to have been a witch who worshipped the devil, sacrificed her baby to Satan, and then hung herself from the tree in the backyard. In the movie, her spirit allegedly terrorized all who live in the home, also causing all different tenants over the years to kill their own children, and allegedly possessing Carolyn Perrin. And I don't remember ever hearing Andrea speak about Bathsheba actually possessing her mother. So I think this is all just made up in Hollywood. Alright, so none of the information in regards to the history of Bathsheba is true. So, history is history, and the facts are the facts. So, the stated history that has been thrown around over the last 40 years is not real, and it appears to me that the tales have been conjured from someone's overactive imagination, rather than uncovered from actual historic files or archives as claimed. Wow, everything is just coming, literally everything is just blowing up out of the woodwork. I mean, with, Lorraine's passing, bless her heart, I just think that they really, really screwed a lot of stuff up. They did. They screwed a lot of people. It's sad, too. They ruined their lives. The Perrin family, they ruined their lives with that seance. Not knowing what they were doing, as Lorraine said. They both admitted they had no idea what they were doing. It was a giant mistake. So, maybe Lorraine, you should have read some books. Possibly. Ed should have, if he was such, if they were such occult experts, which there are no experts in the occult, or, experts in the paranormal, ever. Never. There will never be. Source, spirit, God, goddess is the only being, spiritual entity that does truly is an expert. So, alright, so the person says that I'm not saying that the home isn't haunted. Honestly, I don't know, and I don't care about that. I care about the facts and historical evidence, and there is not one single piece of evidence to corroborate with the Perrin family or Lorraine Warren's allegations as to the history of Bathsheba Sherman. So the property, or the many unexplained deaths of fatal events they claim took place on the property. Wow. So yes, even more is just coming out of the woodwork. Alright, so this blog is to share with the world the true facts regarding the history of Bathsheba Sherman and a few other interesting facts about Burrillville, Rhode Island's history. I love this. This is amazing. It's sad that they would do that to a family, any paranormal team, and it's pretty relevant. I mean, people are doing it all the time. Alright, so the actual true facts about Bathsheba. So, the person says that I have been spending a lot of time researching the history of Burrillville, and any historic information regarding the life of Bathsheba Sherman. So he says, I have found some amazing facts that will totally conflict with the alleged history that Lorraine Warren and Carolyn Perrin claim to have found. So, alright, this gets really interesting here, because she was very wealthy. She was very beautiful. So it's almost like a Bloody Mary tale. How Bloody Mary is so beautiful, and it just all turned bad. Alright, so Bathsheba Sherman was born in 1812 to parents Ephraim Thayer and Hannah Taft. Ephraim's first wife was named Bathsheba Payne, so it seems that his daughter was named after his first wife. She was not an Arnold, as Andrea Perrin claims in her book. She was a Thayer and a Taft. So Bathsheba never worked on the property of the old Arnold estate, nor did she care for a child that died on the property. All lies. All lies. I love this. I really love this. So yeah, this is dreamingcasuallypoetry.blogspot.com. Good stuff. Good stuff right here. I mean, how could you do that to somebody? How could you ruin their lives with, such horrific tales? I mean, obviously, it affected that family, something fierce. So, alright, now Bathsheba married rather late in life, according to the time period. So, she was in her early 30s when she took her wedding vows to Judson Sherman. So, according to this person's research, Bathsheba had 4 children, but 3 of them died very young. Given the time period, this is nothing abnormal, as many died from childhood diseases back then. True. Very true. So, the only surviving son, Herbert Leander Sherman, was born in March of 1849. Their only surviving son. So, Herbert Sherman evidently is still alive. I would think. I don't know. So, alright, but census records from 1850, 1860, 1870, and 1880 show that Herbert was still living with his parents. In the 1880 census, it also showed that a 15-year-old girl named Charlotte Talbot was living in the home as well. Herbert's first marriage to a young lady named Georgiana. Does that name sound familiar? What is Nana's name in The Conjuring? Annabelle comes home. Who does Lorraine? Yes, who does Lorraine call? Her mom. So, sadly, the marriage didn't last long, as she died at the young age of 22. She is buried with the rest of the Sherman family at the Harrisville Cemetery. Her headstone epitaph reads, why should we grieve for one so pure? Our loss to her is gain. Her happiness is now secure. Our sorrows still remain. Okay, so now we have Herbert married for a second time to a Miss Anna Jane Fair on December 4th of 1880. The pair had two sons, William, born 1881, and Fred, born in 1883. Sadly, William died in the 1900s at the age of 9. She never, ever killed her kid. Ever. So everything that you've ever heard about Bathsheba is a lie. So, accusations against Bathsheba. So, for the record, there have never been any sort of records or historic documentation that I could locate in regards to any child of Bathsheba's having died from a knitting needle to the head, being sacrificed to Satan, or any sort of scandal in this community placing blame on her. So, there are no records of any strange deaths or alleged wrongdoing for any type either. The three children of Bathsheba and Judson Sherman, who died, are buried right across from Bathsheba and Judson in the Harrisville Historic Cemetery. Alright, so little bullet points right here. We have, do you really think that the townspeople would have allowed Bathsheba to be buried in the cemetery next to her husband and children if they thought she was a witch? No. No. She would have been burned. And probably, I don't know, taken where? I have no clue. So, do you think that the church would have given her a funeral or even mentioned her in the obituary of the newspaper had she had been so hated in the community? Nope. So, again, he says, from my research and various stories, it is not uncommon that when someone died, that any sort of scandalous events or even rumors that took place in one's life would be mentioned in their obituary. It's true. So, that was sort of expected. So if she had committed such atrocities, you would think that it would have been mentioned, but there was none. So now we're going to get into the area of the whole farm, how it was subdivided and then sold off. So, if you research the property maps of the area, the 1895 map shows the land and the properties broken up by each family that owned all of the land in the area. The names Sherman, Arnold, Taft, Mowry, Gurman, Aldrich, and others can be seen all over the map. You see, in the small town area, most of those people were related to one another. Oh gosh, that explains a lot. So, the town was also very Christian, having established not one but several churches in its early years. The Free Will Baptist, First Baptist Episcopal, the Berrien Baptist, and the Laurel Hill Methodist churches. So, this close-knit community, where many were often related to one another, was full of God-fearing people, and the Shermans were one of the larger families in the area. In fact, Sherman Farm Road still exists today, and is one of the larger roads that goes through the town. That is so interesting. I mean, wow. Really? Why would somebody do that to Bathsheba? I don't know, but I mean, it's pretty sad. But Andrea Perrin did claim that she was the mistress, her father's mistress. So, I mean, I don't know if that was, I mean, I took it as a joke. I thought it was a joke because it was pretty funny the way she said it, but I don't know. So, anyways, alright. Okay, so the churches, all the, the Sherman Farm Road, and then when Bathsheba died on May 25th. Oh, whoa. May 27th is my grandma's birthday. It's weird. Coincidence? 1885. The Reverend A.H. Granger, a Baptist minister, gave the eulogy, and even the newspapers mentioned her passing, by which the way was caused from paralysis due to a stroke. She didn't kill herself. There we go. There was never a note on her death certificate making any sort of claims that she turned to stone. As far as the respectful obituary in the newspaper, that is not something that you would think a Christian community would do for someone they suspected of being a witch that murdered and sacrificed her own children to the devil. No, Bathsheba was not a witch, nor was she a murderer. And it's very shameful that anyone would say such things, which constitutes slander. But what can you do when you're slandering a dead person? You can't do much. I mean, you can't, sadly. But I'm sure Bathsheba already, if you watch some of Andrea Perron's videos, she talks about Bathsheba with her dad, Roger. Yeah, Roger Perron from the family. And they go into detail about Bathsheba. How about she was not a witch. About how Lorraine made that all up. It was, for their own gain. Exploitation. So, when she did die, though, she was interred next to Judson, who had preceded Bathsheba in death several years earlier. So she had married, this time to Benjamin Green. Although when she was buried, she was put with her first husband and children in the cemetery at Harrisville. Being buried with your first wife or first husband was common practice and still continues to this day in many cemeteries, and it does too. If you research and if you look in older cemeteries and newer cemeteries. I mean, all cemeteries are pretty old. But if you do look, you will see that they're buried together as families. So, I think that's sweet. Alright, so, okay, now in her will, Bathsheba was adamant that along with giving her son a small amount of money, that the property would be used to educate her grandson, that when he reached the age of 21, and that the balance of the money left would be turned over to him. So it appears as if she had her will drawn up before the birth of the second grandson. So, does that sound like a mean or wicked person to you? A grandmother who wanted her grandchild to have the best education and inherit money. How does that sound? Does that sound evil? No. Sounds like a pretty good grandmother. So, quote, here's a little note. Okay, one thing that this person says I would like to clarify. If you hadn't realized this yet, the Sherman property is not the Arnold estate that the Perron family purchased on Round Top Road. Bathsheba never lived on the old Arnold estate. Wow. The Sherman property, if you look at the map to the right, was southeast of the Arnold estate. I will save this picture. So, I can put it in the thumbnail, and so you guys can take a look at this too. Alright, so were there any suicide or murders at the old Arnold's estate? Unfortunately, this person says, I don't believe so, as there is no evidence to support those allegations whatsoever. So, the information on the deaths that Andrea Perron's mother, Carolyn, claims to have uncovered did not happen on the property at all. There has never been any documentation proving that any sort of murder, suicides, hangings, or drownings took place on the property. So, some of the people that have been mentioned have dying on the property, such as John Arnold or even his wife Susan, who hanged herself, didn't actually happen on the property. Susan's death happened in 1866 at their home. According to the newspaper clippings, Susan had been planning on the act for some time. When her husband was visiting with a neighbor, she went upstairs, locked herself in the room, and hanged herself from the hook in the wardrobe by a thin cord. The article also mentions that she had a loaded gun, a knife, and even a vial of mercury. What caused her to take her own life? Who knows? The mental illness. But the point is that none of those events even occurred at the Arnold estate on Round Top Road. Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy. So, other allegations that have been mentioned by Lorraine Warren. It was the story of a girl who was murdered in the pantry of the farmhouse named Prudence Arnold. The facts are that she was killed by a man known as William Knowlton, but it was not on the property either. The facts are that Prudence died at the Annan Richardson house, just north of the Massachusetts-Rhode Island line, which is on Route 7. Prudence did not die at the Arnold estate in Burrville, Rhode Island. Edwin Arnold, the owner of the Arnold estate, froze to death while walking home on Sherman Farm Road in the cold winter. He was found by a hunter on Smith Aldrich's farm. So if you look at the old map again, you will see that the Aldrich farm was nowhere near the Arnold estate, as it is in the lower right corner, and the Arnold estate is in the upper left corner, so we're up here from down here. It was said that his body wasn't found for nearly 3 months, but again, it was not at the house, nor was it a murder-suicide. The other was a man by the name of Jarvis Smith, who fell asleep in a barn and died allegedly somewhere on the property. So, it was stated he came back from the bar, more than likely intoxicated, and fell asleep and succumbed to the elements. So whether the other family members over the 8 generations of people who have lived in the home have died from sicknesses, natural causes, or old age, that is an entirely different story. Wow. The odds are that people have died in the home at some point. Of course, it's an old home, so yes. Alright, so, but there are no documents of murder, suicide, or drownings at the home or on the property. That's crazy. That's really crazy, and that's pretty sad that people would go to such extremes to bank on, that movie. Now we actually have proof of the deaths and the murders and the suicide here, so. Alright, now, other random stories. Could there be a link? Alright, so this is pretty cool too. Alright, now. Okay, so to the west, going towards the edge of the state, there is a private cemetery in Buck Hill that holds 4 graves. So many in the area claim it is the grave of a woman named Laura Sherman. Again, this is not on the Arnold estate or the Sherman Farm estate either. So during this person's research of the history of Burrville, he says, I found the story of another interesting tale about the Old Paul place, or the Old Paul house. It was said to be in ruins even at the time the book Burrville, as it is, was written in 1856. The home or castle, as it was referred to as, was said to have been originally built and lived in by the Ballou family. Years later, Paul Smith and his family took up residence on the property. So note, not far from the center of the town is a house fast crumbling down, which has been long known as the above title Old Paul Place. It was originally the residence of an ancient family of Ballas, a common name in this town. So a little to the east of the old castle are 4 graves where they are buried. So, it was afterward occupied by Paul Smith. The old man met with many misfortunes, which gives the place a romantic interest. His wife was insane for many years. Ooh. She was confined in a lonely room, and with none of the appliances with which modern science and philanthropy soothe and improve the sickened mind, she sank into hopeless idiocy. So, one of the sons, an athletic young man, was engaged in a foot race in Slatersville when he burst a blood vessel and died in a short time. So, common stuff. Several families have resided there since Paul Smith died, but the edifice is at present forsaken. So, the moss-grown roof has partially fallen, the massive chimney is breaking down, and the wild wind shrieks through the crazy fabric like the pitiful wail of its ruined mistress. So, the forest is growing up all around it and tiresome. Do not like to frequent the place after nightfall. The raven croaks hoarsely from the open gable. So, and the twilight bats flits undisturbed through the forsaken and desolate apartments. Now this is from the Burrillville as it is. Horace Keach, 1856. So, now what does the owner have to say about this? So, Norma Stutcliffe, the owner of the home on Round Top Road, has been living in the home for nearly 30 years. I found a video of Andrea Perrin and Norma where they speak of the haunting of the house. Although at the time Norma seemed unaware of a detailed history of Bathsheba, she comes across as if she agrees that the home is haunted and that she has experienced paranormal incidences. But later she posted her own video on YouTube claiming that the home is not haunted and stating that the research she had done and documentation to back up her argument about the history of the home. And you can find that too. You can find that video on YouTube. So why did she went along with the haunted aspect of the house in the beginning and then backpeeled her story? We'll never know that one. So perhaps once she saw the attention the home was getting, she regretted speaking about it and wanted her privacy back. So I don't know, and honestly, I don't care. So that's pretty interesting right there. That's very interesting. I mean, I guess if it is haunted, and she, all that traffic, all the publicity, I would definitely retract my statement too. So, nevertheless, that doesn't change documented evidence that disproves the witch theory. So, this person says, like I said, this blog isn't to investigate whether this 300-year-old home is haunted or not. It's about the history. So he says, I have given Norma credit for searching for the history of the home and showing her research on Bathsheba to set the story straight with documented facts. Conclusion. Perhaps the parents experienced something paranormal at that home. We can't say for sure, because only they know the truth to that. So this person says, I have had my own frightening experiences in my lifetime, and I know many people who have experienced such terrifying experiences of living in a haunted home. So it's not really terrifying. I mean, it's not. So this blog is to prove the true history of Bathsheba Sherman, and to set the record straight about her story and the stories of alleged deaths, about suicides on the property that have been attached to the home. So he also goes on to say, I'm not interested in the paranormal aspect of the home in any way. I like this because this is getting to the history and the facts. So, the home could be haunted. It is very old, but the parent family could have also brought something with them when they moved in, or picked up an item that was attached to a bad spirit. Either way, again, he says, I am not here to get into all of that. I am here to state the facts about the history of the property and the history of Bathsheba. So, when examining this story, there comes a point when you must use common sense and draw your conclusions based on factual evidence, not just the history that someone hands you to say is factual. So you have to verify that information they are giving you as, in fact, real. So I say to you, check this information out, do your own research on the story, search for the documents, the evidence, find the truth. Now, here are some facts that he found that I think are incredible. Alright, Bathsheba was not a witch. There's nothing documented that makes any claim of her being a witch. So, Bathsheba was not a baby murderer. Again, no such allegations or records claiming such a thing exists. Bathsheba did not live on that property at any time. Reports do exist to prove that she never lived on the property. Wow. Bathsheba did not hang herself in a tree, in a barn, or in an attic, anywhere. Records do exist that prove that she did not commit suicide, but instead died of paralysis from a stroke at the age of 73. Anyone who speaks badly of this woman, a person who cannot defend herself, should be ashamed of themselves. These fabricated stories are the reason Bathsheba's headstone has been destroyed by vandals, who now believe she is an evil entity possessing mothers to kill their children and terrorizing the house. Most of the blame also should fall on the shoulders of those who blame all these paranormal experiences on Bathsheba in the first place, and any and all who continue to perpetuate the erroneous information that continues to defame and slander Bathsheba's name She was just a regular person. She never lived on the property. Yet she will forever be tied to the false history of the home in urban legend and folklore that made a lot of money to those telling the story. How would you like it if your great-grandmother's story was randomly picked up from an old directory, and a huge, elaborate, and slanderous story was conjured up to ruin your family name and disrespect her memory? Well, that is exactly what happened to Bathsheba. I would be pissed. If anybody did that to my grandma, I would be so upset. So, how do you think her family must feel? Stop and think about that for a second, and really let that one sink in. So, what if 100 years from now someone decides to write about you and makes you out to be an evil spirit possessing people, someone who committed atrocities against your children? Would you like that? I don't think so. So that's pretty funny. I mean, it's not funny, but I mean, we have historical facts right here about Bathsheba. Alright, so what has been done to Bathsheba and her family is wrong and must be fixed. So this is why he says, I am writing this blog. I know that I will not reach everyone out there, but I know that my blog gets a lot of traffic, so I know it will make its rounds through the internet, and Bathsheba's name shall be vindicated. For all of those people who will dismiss this article are blindly believe the information in the movie, I say to you, show me one piece of evidence that proves she was this horrible person, that she was a witch. You can't, because no such information exists. Some people must enjoy a scary story, but you have to take them with a grain of salt, most often than not. So the stories aren't true, no matter how intriguing they are. Remember, believing nothing you hear and only half of what you see. In reality, 9 times out of 10, the stories you read or hear will not be accurate. So it's up to you to find the truth. Please do your research before believing things you see in a movie or read in a book. If they aren't citing their sources from actual documents that really exist, then there is something wrong, and the information cannot be deemed as credible. Wow. So be smart, do your homework, and then once you have all the cards on the table, come to your own conclusions, and remember, fact is often better than fiction. So we have a lot of stuff on Bathsheba here. I mean, it's crazy. That's sad. That's very, very sad. I didn't know that she was so completely just, destroyed. They destroyed her. So, what do you guys think? Very strange to know that now. So yeah, it's very, very strange to know that about Bathsheba now. But yeah, so yeah, she wasn't a witch. She was just a regular old woman. That's it. So, I don't know. What do you guys think, though? I would love to know your guys' opinion on that. And especially the one with the homosexuals being possessed by ghosts. For whatever reason, this paranormal group decided to come up with this nonsense. So, anyways, happy Sunday with Satan, and I will see you guys tomorrow. So, again, don't ask for a reading, pay for it, and then say you never received it because you did. So, I love you all very much. All the way from Venus, all the way back down. And I will see you all tomorrow. So, everybody have a great Sunday.